Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Red Review meeting. Today, we're going to be reviewing the material from Red 117, which corresponds to Lab 13 of year 2024. So, I don't know if I know we always say this, like, oh, it was a tough lab, but it really was, like, for me, like in the middle of lab 13, I had several episodes where I was just really like not working in the day. Like I was completely down. It was like system reset or something like that. My body was
Mm.
responding. How about you guys?
I had that in lab 12, very
Mm-hmm.
tired. And now it feels like there is something updated.
Mm-hmm.
notice it in people, in things, in my connection with other people.
Mm-hmm. How is that
And
with
I,
you?
and I, and I did in at the end of lab 12 I did a very small workshop with
Mm-hmm.
logic, but very small, only
Mm-hmm.
the alignment of space, time, and they really appreciated. There were only 5 people, but they all gave me something. Go through with this.
Mm-hmm. And so you're communicating better with people, you
Yes,
feel?
yeah, I take it very small,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
logic. But it
That's
was
good.
1.5 hours, and everybody was very open to receive, and they could get it, and they could get it in their body. We're all
Mm-hmm.
very embodied. So yeah, I thought I did do less, and then afterwards they came with presents to me. They were so happy and grateful that I think, oh,
Okay, that's nice.
mm,
Mm-hmm. Well, in this lab, we finished with the frequencies of the year that start with a 1. We moved from 199 to 200. This
mm,
transition, this transition is quite important because it is as if the receiver, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 13, 14, 15, and then,
yeah,
hundreds and all of that. These digits come from the right? And we know that
yeah,
1 and 9 and 9 is Ri.
yeah,
We have R and Ri, the Ri axis, which the purpose of LGC is for particular consciousnesses to expand the Ri axis,
mm-hmm,
that instruction. And then we also have the 17th of July, right? So this day converges with the 17th of the 7. So we have 1-9 and we have 1-7 bar 7, right? And we have 9 and 7. We know that 79 is the atomic number of gold. 97 is the atomic number of berkelium, right? So there's something in relation to that there. Another important point of this lab, I thought, was this, which was yesterday, 739-093. So there is, we know that 39 has to do with the update of our perception, right? But when we have a 0, it is an update of the perception, but in relation to the solar native code, right?
mm,
So this is important that we start to differentiate, which is what we are learning to do recently, separate and differentiate between what foreign code is from what native solar code is. Solar native code will always be transparent. It would always be trying to synchronize our gravitational documents, synchronize our destinies, connect with the content, improve the quality of the local reality. While foreign code will always be not transparent, will always be manipulative, will always be power-oriented, competition-oriented, survival of the fittest situation, all of that, right? Reminding ourselves that this is not necessarily, well, it's not a bad thing from the solar perspective. It is just challenges that we has to face. Right, and these interferences tell or show Sun where it needs to improve its codification, right? And then we have this whole situation of consciousnesses that lost their primary connection to the primary unfoldment. So they are searching for spaces to connect to so that they can use their credit and project themselves into spaces that young stars like the Sun to use their credit and to project themselves in there and conquer and all these things. This is also something that exists in the universe, which we didn't know it did. We're just learning about it, such as the king of the universe, things like that, right? But in this case, we are learning about solar consciousness. There's an opportunity for us to take identity in the space, right? Because there are going to be temporal spatial consciousnesses, and then there's going to be space temporal consciousnesses. And there is a possibility or a potential for us to transition from a temporal spatial configuration to a space temporal configuration. What is that? That has to do with taking identity with the space. There's an example for this, or a fractalization of this situation. You know, these travelers, the people that like to travel all over the world, they never actually connect with the space, right? They just, you know, go here and there, all over. And they travel all over the world, and, you know, but they never take identity with any of those spaces. That this is a fractalization of a temporal spatial configuration, right? There is no notion of the frames. There is no notion of the entorno of the setting, which is what allows everything to project itself in there. Another important piece of data that we have in LGC, and I think we talked a lot about it last year, has to do with the San Andreas Fault in California, right? The last secular year was in 1900, 1900. This is related to one of the questions of Marjolaine, which is related to the moon landing. 1900 is the last secular year. A secular year is a year where Sun has to codify on its own. It doesn't have this external help. When we have a leap year, we have that extra day. This means that Sun has, well, this is a definition in LGC, of course. Sun has the support, like an external support to codify. Secular years are years where the Sun does not have this support. It has to codify on its own. So the last three secular years were 1800, 1700, 1800, 1900. 1900 was the last secular year, and we can find that year inside the solar day of the moon landing, which is 719,000, right? This is why I was really mad at this, like really, really mad. We can talk about this later. But what I'm trying to say about the San Andreas Fault is that in 1906, there was this immense earthquake in California related to the San Andreas Fault. And Alejandra talks about this in relation to the feminine conflict, because Andrés is the one that comes every month. Andrés, el que viene cada mes. We use this slang in Spanish. Andrés, the one that comes every month, which is related to the menstruation, right? And it's also related space-temporally, this is how Ale decoded, to the feminine conflict. And what is the feminine conflict in relation space-temporally from the space-temporal perspective? It means that the code that is trying to express itself in this entorno, in this setting, which is Earth, third orbital, is not taking into consideration the frames. So what happens there? It explodes, it breaks the frames because it's not taking into consideration those frames. It just wants to print whatever code it has, and it doesn't care which space it is. So we go back to that point where we're talking about taking identity or belonging to a certain space. So if we prioritize the setting, if we prioritize the entorno, Of course, the way it should be, because it is the one providing me with everything I need so that my code can be printed here, can be projected here. So of course, the entorno needs to be a priority, right? This is what we are transitioning into as well. Okay, so all of this has to do with the update of our perception. We are updating our perception while we are renewing our references as well. We cannot update our perception if we don't renew our references as well. What are our references? Well, our references are now more technical than mystical. We're also moving towards a more technical reference system, which has to do with the solar mind and consciousness, which is related to the calendars. Calendars, let's remember that they are an instrument of transference of solar consciousness, right? So all of this we're learning has to do with that, okay? So yeah, we have that. Right now we are standing solar day 7390094. 94 ID. There's something there with the ID. So we could say yesterday it had to do with a certain update in the perception in relation to the solar code, solar native code. And here, based on the level or the success of that update, we have now a renewal of the ID, of a certain ID. We're talking about identification with the space, right? Okay, so I'm going to be constantly choosing and constantly identifying myself with this space so that I can continue to exist within this space. This is happening because we are moving, passing the 500 apparatuses, the restrictions and the regulations are changing. There are some things that were good for the 400 apparatuses that were necessary for the 400, like there was credit for that. But as we move further into the 500 apparatuses, this is no longer the case. The requirements are higher, the restrictions are higher, the level of demand is higher as well, right? So identity, we're updating our perception according to the solar native code in relation to our identity, right? So, and then we have 4,302 days of instruction, nonstop instruction, more than 11 years. So that's pretty great, I think. This is good for our psychic structure so that it can locate itself in this new form of structuring time, which is calendaria. Calendaria includes space in its organization of time, right? So brand new. Calendaria has been around for 5 years, since 2017. It's fine if we don't understand it. I don't think anybody does fully. We're all learning about it. So yeah, good introduction. Hi, Marjolaine. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm very good. I was just horse riding with my daughter, but her horse was running away. So it was a big adventure. But we are safe and we are back.
I love horseback riding. That's so nice.
It was amazing here. Yeah, we are in Slovenia. Yeah, it's very beautiful here. Thank you.
Wow, that's cool. Okay. All right. Well, let's jump into the material of the RED program. I think it was quite technical too, like the last one. And she mentioned that this was an update regarding the apparatus 396. We have spoken about that apparatus quite a bit, right? We understand that this is the apparatus where there was an anomaly, there was an insertion of a certain manipulation to the solar native code, a bypass to the solar native code's progression or sequence. And this is related to those 10 missing days of apparatus of the year 1582, right? So last year, Alejandra shared this, let me share it with you. She shared the update because she was like, okay, there are 10 missing days, but I have to find a way. I need to find a space where I can put these days, because even though they try to bypass them, these are documents that need to be put somewhere. So she used the 3rd of December and the 4th of December for this task, right? Let me see if I can find that one. I didn't save it on my computer. Yeah, I know where it is. The first one, which has to do with like piling up the days on the 3rd and 4th of October. Here it is. Share it right now. So everything began with this one, right? This is what she shared with us. Here we have it, the 23rd of November, 2023. So this is what she did. She was like, okay, I still have these documents and I need to find a place to put them. So she used the base of the 3rd of October and the 4th of October, right? Which is the last day of the Julian calendar. And then it jumps directly to the 5th of October, which is the first day or day 0 of the Gregorian calendar. But now Alejandra is calling it Agregori al Solariano. Agregori al Solariano, which means to add ri to the Solariano. Remember, the Solariano corresponds in the SO quadrant. Solariano, Solarense, Solar, Solestre. Right? Remember that one? So, agrego ri al Solariano, the first day of that. It lands on the 15th of October. So we have these 10 missing days. So she uses these 2 days to set up a space of support to these documents of those days.
Can I ask a question, Annie?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why she made 2 piles of 5 and not 1 of 10?
No, I don't know why.
Oh.
I don't know. I do know that the 3rd of October is very important. It is related to the Times New Roman typography.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? It is when it's born, I think in 1933, something like that. And then it is updated in 2013 on the same 3rd of October. Times New Roman, New Times.
Oh, yeah.
So Alejandra named the 3rd of October of 2024 Space-Time New Roman, the day of the Space-Time New Roman. And that is also on the 3rd of October. So the 3, which is the 3rd orbital, and 4 it has to do with the destiny. So it is the directing of our destiny, but taking control of that from the 3rd orbital. It is related to something like that. So she used both of these days to do that support to those missing documents, right? Okay. Okay, so we have that. That was what she did last year. But then in this red program, she was like, okay, that was what had to be done in that moment. It was what was necessary, but the requirements for this moment are different. And that's where magic happens. I was so blown away the first time I saw this. So blown away. I thought it was so brilliant. Okay, so remember how did we get here? How did we get here? First, Alejandra opens up the spaces, right? She shows this same diagram, but we can only see the 6 days that actually happened on lap 18 of year 1582. There were only 6 days there, right? Because we have 10 missing days. And that when I saw that empty lap 18, it also helped me. It made me feel as if, or perceive as if there is the space for those days is there, because there are no missing days, because if we look at the sequence of the solar days, the solar days simply continue. What was broken there was the sequence of the dates. Now, remember in the last program where we saw the solar day of it was lap 12 of 1971, where the solar day and the date perfectly synchronized. I think it was, oh, I forgot it, the 11th of July. Let me look at it. I have it right here. No, the 1st of July of 1971. And then we have the solar day, which is 719711, same digits, the same digits of the solar day with the digits. Let me share that one. We're gonna look at this again. Remember this? So 171971, 171971. We have the same digits, right? This is what we talk about when we say that the external source codification bypassed the solar native code sequence. Because this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until the 9th, this synchronization between the solar native code and the date it was like a perfect time for the solar native code to enter into this amazing connectivity. What happened in 1971? We all know what happened in 1971, right? The removal of the gold standard. And then 1972, we have the first leap second. And we know that this is all related to the insertion of this external source manipulation of the solar native code. Why? Because the solar native code is young. The quality of the solar codification is it's still working on it. So it was young star, open, it left certain doors open, and external consciousnesses were able to just insert themselves freely. So that is that. So in relation to that, we also have this anomaly, and it is like the biggest anomaly. We work on this in LGC all the time, but it's never the same. And this is a great example for that. It's never the same. There's always updates, so there's always new things. But let's start with a different graph, which is what began this development. We're gonna look at it again because it's never repetitive anyway. We found that the difference between the current year we have, and then the Hebrew year or the Jewish year. And remember, it's the year, it's not a calendar. We're not talking about the Jewish calendar, we're talking about the Jewish year, because we're always working on the line of the Gregorian calendar. It's always on the Gregorian calendar, right? So we are currently in year 2024, and then the Jewish year that they are parallelly living in is year 5784, right? So that gives us a constant of 3760 years. So now Alejandra, and based on this, what she's doing is she is projecting certain years, certain metrics, certain data, critical points of data, of metrics, and finding out which is that year projected 3,760 years into the future. And she is saying that these are the years that are controlling. For example, year 5784 is controlling 2024 from the future. It was at least, because now the solar native code is trying to nativize those mechanisms of manipulation, right? So routing these things helps us starting to take more responsibility for what's going on, okay? So this is where it all happened. where it all began. And this is
Denise,
where
it's that 5784 controlling because it's later. It's a later
because it's
year.
from
Is
the
it?
because it's from the future. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
It is a mechanism that external source codification uses or used to use to manipulate the solar native code. It is like tricks to
Yeah.
using
Because
the calendar to do whatever they wanted, right?
it's a higher range. It's from the future, and that's why it controls our year here.
It is from the future, of course. And it control, because remember that at a subatomic level, there is no past, present, or future. There's always it's always a present. It's all
Yeah.
together. So, but if we're talking about code, we're talking about code. We're not talking
Yeah.
about time or space-time as we know it anatomically, right? This is what LGC is teaching us all the time, is trying to learn a logic from a different dimension, which is not the anatomic. And the subatomic instance has a completely different logic. So it is hard for us sometimes to understand that we're not talking about an anatomic control from the future. We're talking about a subatomic instance where past, present, and future are together and they work like it is one single moment. They are not separated. Okay, so it is important that we do that, because if we don't, and this is something that I thought it was very important that Alejandra said, when we want to do a calculation, or I don't know, I want to find a certain solar day, I want to find a certain date, or I want to find, I don't know, how many days of life of mine added to someone else, right? The main thing we want to find is the result. We want to go directly to the result. And that is something that we should not do. We should be argumenting the logic of why we are doing that calculation, instead of going directly to the result and trying to figure out what the result is trying to tell me. Instead of doing that, creating the route, creating the argument of why I want to get to that result. And then when I get to that result, okay, I can have a reading of that. But if I go straight to the result, what's going to happen? She said, I'm going to take the interference because all of that is vacant. If I go straight to the result, all the process is vacant. And what's going to happen? Everything that I left vacant and I went directly to that critical point, I leave it open for interference, and it's going to be managed externally. So this is like really important that we do. She's always saying concepts first. Concepts need to be there first. Reasoning, argumenting why we're doing things, instead of, because this is not math, because we are so undereducated at a subatomic level that when we do these things, we open up doors for interference to keep on messing with us. So this is part of the responsibility of being responsible for the process, not just going towards the result. And this is also a situation that has to do with our inability to separate or differentiate our digital aspect from our analogical aspect. And this is very important. Digital aspect, basic, is result-oriented. Analogic aspect, it has to do with processes, results, processes. But this is something that can be applied to anything, not just to humans. There's an analogic aspect and there's a digital aspect. This can be implemented to anything, not just humans. But in our case, our digital identity, it lives in a different instance and it only wants results. And it's perfect, and you can't tell it it's not perfect. Analogic aspect, it's completely imperfect, and it's always process. So if we only want our digital, if we only pay attention to our digital, then because there's a delay from our analogic, we're going to be harming our analogic instance if we don't separate this, if we don't give each aspect what it needs. Okay. So back to this, we know that Alejandra projected from year 1582, 3,760 days forward, and she found herself in this year, 5742, 5342. Okay, so what she did, she filled up these empty spaces of lap 18 of year 1582 with the days of year 5342, which when she first did that, I was so blown away. This was so cool. And then she added what happened the 7th of October 2023. Anybody remember? Bombing of Israel.
Yes.
The first bombing of Israel. Okay, so she's using this day as a critical point, the 7th of the 10th, 2023. And on top of that, that is when Putin is born. Putin is native to a 7 of the 10, 1952. 52. Okay, so she reads the metrics of the wheat, and also she reads the metrics from this date to this date, right? And we find the balance or equilibrio of 224, which is the periodic table. Okay, she's like, okay, do we have a balance in the periodic table of elements, or do we not? Or is it still gonna be controlled externally? Are we gonna take responsibility for that or not? It doesn't mean that we have to do it right now. We can't. No one is habilitated to do that. But the possibility is open for us to learn. And and if we take that responsibility, we may extend our cycles of life to do that, to learn how to do that. We are talking about possibilities, of course, possibilities for everyone, okay? And then we have 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 2, 2, 4, 2, 2, 4, 6, 2, 2, 4, 7. And this is where we jump into the 5th of the 10, which is back to the future. Here we are on year 5342, and then here we are on year 1582. This was not on the last program, was it? This was 117. So I thought that this was so important. Great update for the apparatus 396. And another thing that I've been reasoning a lot is how Ale talks about apparatuses, right? Every apparatus has a configuration, a specific configuration, a specific structure. And every apparatus has a specific function or task within the Solar Native Code, right? The way we see time or we perceive time is completely different from how the solar consciousness uses those containers, those structures. For the sun needs to document every occurrence. It needs to document every iteration, every signal it receives, every codification it creates. It needs to store it. So in every apparatus, it stores and it assigns specific tasks for this local reality to work as it does, right? So that apparatus 396, it is like the first apparatus that is teaching us that. It's teaching us that every apparatus has a task. The task of 396 has to do with, from the third orbital, what is the static? 96 is static, estático. But if we don't have a management from the third orbital of this of the tasks that correspond to the third orbital, if we don't have an administration of that, then we're going to be administrated from the future. And whatever from the future, it's the dinámico. 96 is 69 from the right, and 69 is dynamic. So if we don't know what our static is, then dynamically something's gonna come, it's gonna insert itself in our static. We're gonna be perceiving it as a static, but whoever is doing it is gonna be dynamic doing it. Does that make sense? This is related to the task of that specific apparatus. It is the apparatus, the first apparatus that is teaching us about itself. Of course, so this is all solar native code, right? And we are learning how sun has been interfered in its most intimate aspects. And because we are not educated, because we are so under-evolved on those instances, we are so easy to fool, right? Because we have no idea about any of this.
But Denise, why is Edith her name in the last two column?
She didn't put that on the red program, right?
No.
Okay, so that's a filtration. That's from a private meeting. But it's fine. It's fine. It is just, she just explains Edith Kimchi. I myself am native to Lab 18 as well as Gabby. There are other ladies which we are all native to Lab 18. Edith Kimchi is also native to Lab 18, and her positive frequency is 279, which is 972 from the right.
No.
And Edith Kimchi is related also to Event 28. Edith helped Alejandra make Event 28 happen in Israel, and Edith works and lives in Israel. And she's been living in Israel since the beginning of the process. So she is she has been very ill. I think this past year, she's been ill. Her health has been, I think she had several surgeries and she's been struggling with her health quite a lot. So Alejandra just shared some certain metrics which helped her understand the implication of Edith's biology in the process and why that's happening to her. And the bottom line, which I was able to understand, is that she is right on the limit of the solar native code and the foreign code. That is why she has been struggling a lot with her health. And Ale has been working a lot with her, trying to help her out in that process. But yeah, this is a delicate issue. It is not talked about a lot, openly. It's a delicate thing, but since it was filtrated, we can talk about it, respectfully and just so that we know. So yeah, that with Lab 18, I think it's really.
I have a very interesting connection with Edith. We found out when we put our constant and everything. Very interesting.
Yeah.
There's some connection between us.
Yeah, we know everything is connected, but what we don't have is the logic to interpret those connections.
Yeah.
Because if we look at the metrics, we're going to find all kinds of connections, but the thing is our interpreter mature enough to interpret them? Does it have space-temporal logic to interpret it? Because if not, it's only going to be data and it's not going to turn into space-temporal consciousness. So we need to work on the concepts so that we can implement that logic into our interpretations, so that those interpretations can turn into actual consciousness. And consciousness is knowing how everything is connected and being able to explain the how, right? This is what Ale did in this red program. She's explaining how everything is space-temporally connected through a space-temporal consciousness, which is another level of understanding reality. So we're gonna go to the questions. We're gonna look at Marjolaine. Solar aspect comes and makes us future. How can we participate with the design? Do you want to open up a little bit of your question?
It's exactly what she said at minute 2:22. Solar aspect comes and makes us new computer. How can you? And then she said, we can participate to make a new design. So And then I was wondering, how can we do this participation?
This participation of creating a new design.
Yes, in the solar aspects, yes. I
This
see.
has to do with what we were talking about earlier. I think it begins with that choice of taking identity with this specific space. And it has to do with identity. We know I and then D, ID is 9-4, right? Which is the purpose of the design. Now,
Yes, I have it completely, Denise. Solar aspect comes and makes us reinterpret the past or the future is expanded, so that we can reinterpret the past.
reinterpreting the past, yes. So
Yes.
the solar consciousness enables us to reinterpret the past, right? Remember, everything we are learning here, these concepts are potentials. By saying these things and understanding these things doesn't mean that we know how to do them, okay? We are talking conceptually. But solar consciousness, the expansion of the solar consciousness, it has to do with the logic of the containers. We are more accustomed to the logic of contents, right? But if the container is evolving in its consciousness, it is transferring its resources to its contents, which means that if we align ourselves to that expansion, we may access these potentials if we also expand our own consciousness. And it's related to this redesigning. What is a redesigning? It is introducing more elements, more things into our configuration, we could say, allowing more things in there. So what we were saying earlier about restructuring our references, right? This is what we're doing all the time in LGC. We are learning about the things that make up the reality we live in, which is the logic of the frames. So if we are constantly adding the logic, perspectives from the logic of the containers into our perception, into our particular perception, we are going to be increasing or incrementing our design. We're going to be constantly adding new elements into our design, which is going to translate into an updated perception. Because I have more references, I have more elements, this is going to restructure me internally, and it's going to allow me to have a fresh perspective on things because I have new elements, or I have allowed more elements into my design. Yes, but this is all a conscious process. This didn't happen consciously. It was like, okay, I am born with a design. I don't know who created that design, but it wasn't me. It is like a generic design. I am born into it. And then everything I perceive reality according to that design. So what the expansion of the solar consciousness is enabling us as a possibility is to align with that expansion and us as primarily content, but we can also be in that transition become container, also be like have a quality of the containers as well, and not just become or be contents. This is also a possibility that is being enabled through these education, this formation, this growth of the concepts that we are doing in LGC is educating us towards us being able to achieve access to those possibilities. Yeah, is that good? So from the future, being able to reinterpret our past. This can only happen if we have updated our perception. If we have not achieved this, then there is no way we're going to be able to read again with a fresh perspective, read again our past. There's like, if we don't have a new perspective, if we don't have an updated perspective, then we're gonna go look at our past and our past is gonna look the same because it is me from the future, but nothing has changed because I have not increased or made grow my re-access. I have not gained a particular access to anything, right? So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be fulfilling a cycle, repeating a cycle until it runs out, and then Earth can guide me towards my death. And when Earth guides me towards my death, it put a checklist on my life. It fulfilled its commitment to me. You know, Earth fulfilled my life and it took me to my death. That is Earth's win. Like she fulfilled her compromise, what she needed to do with us. But if we are aware, we're conscious, we're gaining space-temporal consciousness, we're connecting to the frames, we're learning about the structures, then maybe eventually we can learn the how we can actually restructure our code. Not mystically, not symbolically, actually learn how to restructure our code. And we're talking about possibilities here. Maybe we can learn to do this later and we can expand the cycles of our life, right? Communicating with the entorno, the third orbital, the consciousness of Earth, connecting, understanding the works of the solar consciousness, so we can learn to align to that, and then everything will start to be synchronized because the purpose, the solar codification, the increasing of the solar codification is about increasing the synchronicity of its content and increasing the quality of the local reality. Possibilities for us, which hopefully we can learn how to do later.
Yeah, because Alice is really designing so much since November last year. That's incredible. That's really, it looks like if we are in something like a twilight zone. It's really very, very going fast now. And what you said is maybe it's also every time there's the 118, 119 and the 224, 224 with the 14th of August, the triangle. I think we can do more again. And maybe we do a lot in the subconscious, Denise.
Yes, definitely. The thing is that everything Alejandra's receiving, she's receiving on her re-access. And we know that the re-access is not transferable and is completely particular. We have no access to each other's re-access, right?
That is my next question, but anyway.
Everything Alejandra is receiving she's receiving on her re-access. Everything she issues, she is issuing in raw. So she's not issuing on the same level she is receiving. Right? But I forgot why I was going there. Wait. Oh, yeah. And she is trying so hard to share with us what she's receiving. But this woman does not stop working. Like she works 24/7. Like these 11 years, she has been working. She never stops, never, ever stops. Like she's giving her whole life to this. I think it's amazing what she's doing. And also she's becoming more and more, like I think that LGC is becoming more and more clear as we move forward, because Ale is getting so much better in her explanation of things. So we are also in this formation, we have been growing together. I mean, we have been all been growing together, everybody from their own position, right? But yes, she works so hard, and there's always like a waterfall of information, a constant waterfall of information. So yeah, so I think that answers the first question, right? We're gonna go to one of Nienke's. The portal. I saw this was like a topic of interest for everyone. Honestly, I think she mentioned it because she spends a lot of time in social media, because she
Oh,
likes
yeah.
to see what people, are saying and sharing and talking about. So I don't really know like specifically what she means like specifically, but I do know that there has been talk about, these consciousnesses that travel through time. I really don't know. I haven't heard anybody talk about this really myself personally, and she never shared any of these videos. But she said that there's people very anxious about these portals that are being opened, and time travelers and these things like this how do you say it, anormality, like space temporal anomalies that we don't like. Of course we wouldn't understand, people appearing and disappearing because they entered a portal, whatever. So but what she's saying is like, I keep saying don't go into the portals, because it is not just your anatomic existence what's into play. What's into play, what's at risk here is the like being stuck inside a cycle, because a particle introduced itself into space-time, not knowing absolutely anything about where it was inserting itself to. And on top of that, entering portals. So it's like on the first place, I projected myself. I don't know where. I have no clue. I have no resources. I have no knowledge about the setting I am introducing myself to. I just wanted to experience a reality, and I did that. And on top of that, I am traveling in space temporal portals, and without any space temporal consciousness whatsoever, no metrics, no nothing. Of course, I'm gonna be stuck. So it's not just the anatomic life that's at risk. It is the subatomic consciousness that's gonna be stuck. There's people that are gonna be stuck inside a cycle and not gonna know how to get out. This is why she keeps saying this is not a moment to travel, to time travel. This is not a good time, because the transition that this particular solar consciousness is going through is like there are risks, actual risks. There are people talking about, the sky's the limit, or nothing is real, or we live in a simulation, all of these things, not understanding that there's an actual risk of, okay, whatever, I die. It's not as easy as that. It is not as simple as that, because we are multi-dimensional, and we can harm. There are different levels of our existence that we can actually harm. Like the example where Ale would talk about how before we would kill ourselves with arrows and rocks, and now we want to kill ourselves with atomic bombs where we can destroy atoms, destroying our memories, destroying our structure. That is important. Like it's not like I'm gonna kill you with an arrow or with a punch. No, I'm gonna kill you with an atomic bomb. I'm gonna destroy your atomic information. That is like a different level of destruction, and it is important to know this, right? So that's all I can say about the portals. Like it's not really, I don't know much more about it. Just stay away from them.
Yeah.
Just say
But
it.
I was kind of more surprised, like, okay, are there people who
Why
are
she-
like busy with LGC? Why is she giving so much attention to this and helping those people who
Yeah,
are
the
busy
same
with
for me.
it?
The same for me. Are there people from LGC in that then?
People from LGC in those doing that, or what?
Yeah, I asked if then Alan knows if people from
Oh.
LGC doing that.
I don't know if it's people from LGC, but because the Red program is public, I think
Yeah.
she's talking to like a more general public, which is not following
Yeah.
LGC as closely or working, busy with the logic, but people that just like to look at it for like entertainment
Yeah.
or curiosity, or, because there's a lot of people listening to this, which is not from out of resonance.
Yeah.
But Ale always says like that it makes her really sad that she cannot share this with more people. Like she wishes that more people would take advantage of this opportunity, and it is so sad that there's so few that are interested in this, right? Because people are like, what am I gonna do with it? Like this information like doesn't even fit into my life. We're not even talking about an atomic logic. We're talking about subatomic logic. Like who cares, right? A lot of people are there and they just want to live their lives. But she also said recently, like, okay, why do so little people resonate with music? Why is there so few of us? Like that is a big question in the community, right? And she said, it is because a big part or a chunk of our codification is still on the antimatter. Because we're getting here. We're still materializing. While a lot of the people are going back to the antimatter. It is like all of their codification is already expressed. We, like the ones that are resonating in the logic, we have a chunk of our code still in the antimatter, and we're materializing still in that process. And some people are in the process of dematerializing, meaning going back to the antimatter. So that's the explanation she gave. And I thought, well, that does make sense. It means we're still under construction. And in that construction, the construction over code means we're integrating aspects of a solar culture. We're creating that in our materialization or condensation.
Thank you.
So the portal thing, she was talking about that, and then she said, this is why I am gonna use the date of establishment of the wheat as a coordinate, as a space-temporal coordinate for lost occurrences to be found. What? Okay, that's very new. But when I heard that, I was like, whoa, okay. So that's good. That's good because it's an ignorance license. I mean, I'm sure that these people are not evil. They're just like trying to have fun, but they don't realize how risky it is to play in space-time. And Ali's like, okay, this is the place. Like, so you can find yourselves again. Establishment of the wheat, 17th of May, 1865. So that with the portals to help lost travelers. Yeah, like you wrote here in your question. Yeah, so at least there's hope. So we can, and I think at some point Ale talked about that, about what she would do or what she would say if she would encounter a lost time traveler.
Mm.
Have you ever seen or heard anything about this? Because I haven't, like, not even on social media or anything. I haven't heard any stories of this kind. Have you?
I
Yeah.
am in the a bit sneaking in the plasma technology, and they are busy going to the moon and going to they are busy with that.
Like finding portals and stuff?
Yeah.
Like like in specific dates and all, right? Where, oh, the planets align and the moon and blah 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 blah, and then they do
No,
these.
not that, but they say we our soul, and they connect to the soul, and then they can travel to an area, and they don't need a suit on the moon. It's like that, and they are busy with that, doing that.
Yeah. Well, see,
Yeah,
there's people busy
I
with
was
other.
really, I think, what
We're
is this?
busy. We're busy with LGC, and then there's people busy with other stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah, they are really busy with that.
that's crazy. Okay. Let's go into a question. Okay. The portals. Yeah, your question was similar to that, Gabby. Okay, we're going to Girhe. Sometimes Dutch language, you guys have to help me with the Dutch. I have no clue.
I think Dirk is not a question, it's a summary she made.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it is a summary. It's a
Yeah,
summary. Good,
That's
good,
right.
good too.
Yeah.
Like we can go over it a little bit. Okay, so middle part. I don't have a clue, no idea when the vuelta and the days are coupled with other Sundays of calendaria and other important events. This is what we looked at earlier. Did you catch that? The 1st of July of 1971. Let me share it. Let me share it with you so you can. This is it. What we were talking about earlier is directly related to what you're asking. This. The coupling of the date with the solar day. See that
Yeah.
we have the same digits here and then here, and we have all of that up until the 9th of July of 1971. This is an example of that.
Yeah.
You see? That is what we mean when we say coupling of dates with solar days. You know what a solar day is? You're
Yeah.
aware of that, yeah?
Yeah.
From the 1st of January of the first year, and we count the days.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so that is a different hierarchy. A solar day is much of a higher hierarchy than the
Yeah.
codification of a calendar, because the solar days have to do with
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
with more consciousness, and then
Yeah.
the days have to do more with like the structuring or the application of that. Yeah. So the alignment of that is a big deal. And this is what was interfered in 1971 and then 1972, etc.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's clear.
That's better? Okay, good. It feels a little bit vulnerable to ask, but I also
Oh
know
yeah.
that
That's
for
my
your growth.
insecurity.
Otherwise, the tsunami can communicate. Yeah. This is good. Like, this is an analogy that she uses where we are not we are not interested in anything that has to do with the mechanics of our surroundings, right? We're only interested in our particular appetites. So we go on our holiday and we are killed by a tsunami, right? And this is an analogy she likes to use. Okay, so let's talk about these Dutch words. 117, lap 13. That's not clear? Because you know that there's a red program every beginning of every lap, right? Every 16 days. So red 117 was recorded on the first day or second day of lap 13. This is what Ale always does. Every beginning of the lap, she records a red program. Yeah. So right now we are on lap 13 and then red program 117. Yeah.
And is it red because of the, I don't have a picture here, because one of the quadrants is red? Why is it called red?
Oh, red program. Alejandra Casado en red, because red is network.
Okay.
Spanish, network. So it is like Alejandra Casado en red. It is like online, Alejandra Casado online. Red is like when that red light is on when you're recording. It's a red light. That's why.
Yeah, okay.
Red.
Yeah.
Network, online. Alejandra Casado online. Yeah.
Can I have one question? It's something back. The LGC is gravitorial logic and conceptual logic. Can you tell something about it?
Okay, LGC, that is like the latest definition of LGC Alejandra has presented. Lógica gravitatoria, lógica conceptual. Gravitational logic, conceptual logic. Why? because we are conceptual and the earth is gravitational, right?
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So we are learning about the logic of the containers, and we are aligning the concepts to the logic of the containers and allowing our concepts to grow, allow us to continue being gravitational also along with the earth. So gravitational, conceptual. Everything we do in LGC is with the purpose of growing or enhancing our conceptual base. Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah.
Instruction does that, helps us do that, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, you have a question here in relation to the primary unfoldment, right?
For me, it's okay now. Where are you?
Yeah?
Wait.
Oh, after where you said, where you put elementable.
Oh,
2023 antenna, and then let me share the screen. Let me share the screen so you can see where I am. See?
Oh,
Right here.
yeah, the elemental. Yeah, but I found 103 from in red. And there she is explaining, so I now know I have to read this. Oh, sorry, then you can see.
Oh, the periodic table. You are catching up on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay,
The periodic
okay,
table.
great.
I
That is
going to read that.
perfect. That's good that you're going over that. It is really important because now, since the end of 2023, that the periodic table, basically everything that we do in LGC is based on the
that.
development, yeah, of the periodic
Wow.
table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you want to catch up, we can meet privately and we can go over it if you want,
Oh,
okay?
that is very nice.
Yeah,
Thank you.
because it's really important.
Okay.
Okay, so gravitational,
This is more a summary what you now see. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what I found interesting is I don't know if I translated good. You said Dr. Hamer made a reference at the beginning of life on Earth.
Yes.
And yeah, that was interesting. And setting frame parameters.
Something.
Setting frame parameters.
Oh,
Did I-
setting, yes. Setting
do you
frame.
understand? Yeah.
I think she wanted to, like, I think she started to talk about hammer and then she wanted to develop something and then she went in a parallel thing and she didn't continue developing what she wanted to say about hammer. But she did say that the importance about Dr. Hammer, in LGC at least, is that he set setting parameters, which
Yeah.
which is something that many scientists do not do. And what is a setting parameter? What is a parameter of the entorno? The entorno
Okay.
for is the third
Yeah.
orbital, right? Right? So he organized the stages of evolution according to the parameters of the third planet of the third orbital. Yeah?
He
These are
organized what did you say? He organized the stable
the states of evolution, our states of evolution, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we're first how our material body evolved,
Mm-hmm.
the layers of the body, like the most internal to the most external, right?
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
all he used parameters of Earth, of the evolutionary stages of Earth, to structure this understanding for humans. He structured understanding for humans beginning from a parameter of the third orbital.
Yeah.
This is like the importance of hammer in LGC.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
In the entorno or
Entorno for us is, I use the
Yeah.
word setting or environment or
okay.
surrounding.
Yeah.
or the frame. For us, our entorno is the third planet on the third orbital. That is our entorno. So everything we perceive, that's why number 3 is related to perception. We're gonna perceive it according to the configuration of the third orbital, because we're natives to this orbital.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like the
Yeah.
way the Earth moves around the sun, the structure of the calendar, that is according to the third orbital.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So that is to introduce entorno, parameters of entorno. Okay. All right,
Yeah.
let's go back to Marjolaine's questions, and then I'm gonna go back and forth. Okay. It's over. They go back to the fundamental scale of primary unfoldment. Right? So this was related, I think, to maybe temporal spatial consciousnesses that are not interested in any parameters, frame parameters or structural parameters, right? Was it about that?
Yeah, she said it's over. They can go back to the fundamental scale of the primary unfoldment. Primary unfoldment is not evolutionary. And then she talked about the hydrogen. For this reason, hydrogen is the most bounded element of the universe because it has not a evolutionary evolution. But my question is, who is they? It's over. They go back to the fundamental scale. Who's they? Is he talking about foragers?
In this context, I think she's talking about particularities that are projected in this space that have not been able to differentiate primary unfoldment from secondary unfoldment or imagination from reality, right? So there are certain occurrences, or I don't want to say people, but like consciousnesses that are still too imaginary, and they are not being able to include or align themselves to this process of expansion of the universe. So because the requirements are high, so they're going to be going back to the fundamental aspect of primary unfoldment. Primary unfoldment is paradise. It is, you have everything, you have nothing, and then you like eternal space, eternal everything, and you are in that instance of instant, which there's no time. You can imagine whatever you want, and then but there is no process, and there's no residue, and there is no evolutionary requirement. So whoever doesn't want to evolve, doesn't want to expand in its consciousness, then it goes back to primary unfoldment. Whoever doesn't have the appetite of growth and expansion and evolution, whoever doesn't have that appetite. Everyone
then
follows,
it's clear.
Everyone follows their own particular destiny, not personal. Here we can differentiate personal from particular. When we say particular, we're always talking about the subatomic particle. And the logic of the subatomic particle is completely different from the anatomic. When we say personal, there we're already a person. We have a life. We have an identity in the anatomic instance. We have an identity to the human race. We have a past. We have a future. We have a species. Yeah. But when we're talking about a particular consciousness, there's nothing of that. There's no temporal identity. The identity is purely spatial. It's eternal. The particular instance has an eternal quality, spatial equality. It has no temporal quality. So there is no concrete identity. That is why Ale always talks about our progression in creating an impersonal identity, and this is related to the particular, right? So every subatomic particle is going to have a specific configuration, which is appetites. What is going to be the purpose for me to experience an existence in this gravitational instance? Why do I want to do that? What's going to be my appetite? Do I just want to experience, have fun, enjoy? Or do I actually want to learn about the mechanisms of the secondary unfoldment and being able, like what allows existence to exist and to evolve and to progress, and what is a star and what is the universe, and learning about this technically, making my observer evolve. Because this is something really cool that she said lately. She's like, it is not that it is the observer, the one that's a baby, but the observer applies its own qualities to what it is observing. So we think that the universe is precarious, but actually it is the observer that is precarious, that is in a very still moment of, in a very early moment of observation. So we think that the universe, like we apply the same qualities of primary state of observation that we have, we apply that to the universe. But it doesn't mean that the universe is quite evolved. The ones that are not evolved are us, and we are the observers. So this is also about evolving our observation of the universe, right? So it has to do with like the appetites of the particular, the subatomic particle that wants to, is it going to choose to gravitationally exist or not? Is it going to remain a hydrogen? And that's fine. You can be a hydrogen for all of eternity. But if you want to choose to exist in a temporal frame, to do something specific with your consciousness, then that's, it's going to vary with every subatomic particle.
Beautiful
Wow.
explanation. Thank you,
Yeah.
Denise. It's
Oh, I'm
really-
tired. I got tired today. That's weird.
Oh,
I know. Okay.
I was 2 days when I did the 2 parts. I was sleeping. I had to
Really?
listen it 2 times, and it was really exhausting. I slept a lot
Yeah.
as well.
It
I
is.
also felt asleep
for the-
during
really?
hearing it more times than once. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God. I think it's because we're like densifying, Like this is because to evolve is to densify. So including these types of notions allows us to, I
Je moet
think,
ook in Zagreb zijn. Ja,
gravitation, like gravitate more, right?
Yeah.
To gravitate. So, and also it is like our unfolded takes all these context variables and it has to sleep to communicate with its double and send that information to the double, because it is the double, the one connected to the frames. So we have to feed it the variables that we receive in the context, because we are projected inside here, right? So we receive all these variables and then we send it to the double, and then the double does what it needs to do. Something like that, the thing with the double, I've been struggling with my double for a long time. I've had trouble with my double. I don't know why, but there is like an interference like an easy interference in the double at a molecular level, because the molecular, we have the atomic and then we have the molecular and then we have the anatomic. The molecular double is the one that, is more locally connected to our unfolded, to like the person down here, to this configuration. So if the double is interfered because, there is a misunderstanding, a misinterpretation, or something that I am not being able to manage, then it's going to be managed externally. And all kinds of things are just interference to the solar native code, because the solar native code is trying to progress in its implementation of its codification, but then interference is also trying to bypass all of that, because it doesn't want to lose its source of energy. If it loses its source of energy, then it ceases to have a physical existence, and it doesn't want that. So there's many things that could be happening.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Was it-
needed to sleep also while listening. It was really like going out, like going in a coma.
Mm-hmm.
I had it that I felt this time more than other times her urge in her way of speaking, or how do you say that in English? That I felt that she was really, yeah, in a way more like, don't you understand that it's important, you know?
Oh yes.
That was,
Yeah. Like more heavy, more strongly.
yeah, strongly. It really like that really came over really well also, yeah. But that's why it also was really intense. But I really loved it. I really loved it. Yeah.
Right, me too. That last part, like I said, I
Mhm.
hadn't listened to it. So when I did and I was translating, I was like, what? Like it was heavy. It was
Yeah.
intense to do it. While I was doing it, I was like, I felt like it was a big responsibility to transfer something like that, you know? So I was
Yeah.
trying to take, you know, I always do take it really seriously because it's a very delicate matter. And
Yeah.
you know, when I'm gonna meet Alice sometime, once a year. But like when I talk about the fact that I translate it to English, I'm always so nervous to tell her that because I'm like, oh, but I don't know what her thoughts are about it, or if she approves or
Yeah.
not. But I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, we're just filling out a gap, and there's a necessity, so we're just doing it. You know, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, thank
But
you very
especially
much
also,
for this.
Sorry.
Thank you very much that you do this
Yeah.
translation for us. Yeah.
I do it with a lot of happiness. I really enjoy doing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And do you know why she was so strict at, especially at the end, about destroy the symbolic
Yeah.
entity
I think it was because we're going towards
identity?
the 11th of August, you know, towards the end of the configuration of the periodic
Yeah.
table. And if we don't destroy that symbolic identity, and if we don't have that appetite because she said, if we can destroy, it means that we can reconstruct. But if we can't destroy, it means that we just don't have the reach to reconstruct again, right? So that's why we cannot ask other people, because there are just some people that can't do it. Because if they destroy their identity, they die because they have no other resources to reconstruct themselves back again. But yeah, she's saying, okay, there is a big responsibility ahead of us, and it has to do the 11th of August, which has to do the octave of the context. And if we don't integrate these notions properly, then we are at risk of that octave, that social octave, to burst. We know that Toganeson derivated from Oganeson, but it is placed on the level of hydrogen and helium. Why? So that it doesn't burst, so that the update of the context doesn't burst the octave of the context that is in functioning. So there is an octave functioning, it is barely functioning, it is always about to burst, but the Solar Native Code is trying or attempting to gatekeep these properties so that we don't lose our memory, so that we don't lose, you know, our past documents that we need, because we need all of these things to progress into the next stage. So I think it's because of that, like it is a critical point when we get to day 224. You know, we began in 119, we did all of that, and then we've been doing all of that, and then we're moving towards the reactives. Remember, all the elements on the left are the reactives. So I think it's also that, going towards the reactives, because if we make the reactives burst too much, then we can burst the third orbital all over again. And we don't want that. Yeah. So next question it is from Nienke. The door for particular development for the subatomic particle to enter through NO, observe all the spaces on the right side of the periodic table. Okay, I think, yeah, there she was talking about, she said, I think she said, the fact that there's a big door and many people can come through it doesn't mean that it is something useful or something good. It is like this saying that just because you see so many steps doesn't mean it's the right path. I think that big door, she's relating it to like religions. Religions provide a generic code or a generic design, so that subatomic particles can materialize, right? So that's the big door. But the small door is the subatomic particle that creates its own codification to be able to materialize itself. Like it doesn't depend on an external coder for it to materialize itself. And that's the small door. The subatomic particle projecting itself willingly into existence with the purpose to do that. And taking into consideration the frames, knowing what it's doing layer by layer, understanding the dimension of things. This was really good explained. This was explained really good in that this one. Let me show you. I forgot the name of it, but like that development with Gaia. Remember that? Hold on. Let me open it again. I think this explains it quite well. This one. Remember this? Did she show this or not? Am I filtrating? Am I filtrating this? She didn't show it?
Didn't show it.
Oh, okay, sorry. Forgot. Okay, I shouldn't be filtrating these things. But this explains how our double connects, like prior to being born, connects to the frames, right? And there's this thing that is called the promise. The promise of what? The promise of what this occurrence wants to do particularly, and with the entorno, because if I'm gonna project myself into an entorno, then I need to take into consideration that entorno, and I need to, like, inside my purpose of materializing myself, inside that purpose, inside that intention needs to be my will to improve that container as well, right? So like that, those are the promises. Like before we are born, that subatomic particle has an attempt to interpret that space in which it's going to be projected. It makes an attempt. So that is like what we call the promises prior to existing. Now, when we're existing, we're down here, we're actually existing, we're actually interacting with the entorno, with the variables, and we're actually in there, like we put ourselves in there, then that is the unfolded. And it's going to be communicating with its double to be like, okay, this is going on, and there's always going to be variables there, you know, from what the promise was, from what actual gravitational existing is, right? Because that promise is created in a different instance than actually existing. So okay. So yeah, the door for particular development is a small door. That's why we don't see a lot of identities quite defined. Like we see a lot of generic identities, like they repeat themselves. We can see a specific design, a specific model, and then many of those. Then another model and many of those, and another model and many of those. But the ones that are particularly defined, that is a smaller door, you know, analogically speaking. Okay, next question. Marjolaine. No, wait. Yeah, we went from Marjolaine. We went to Nienke and then we go to Girge. Okay, back to Girge.
Oh.
We are on under LGC, gravitational logic, conceptual logic. We're under that, where it says by crisis. Can you explain that part? Let me show you. Right here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, increment. Yeah, what I heard was by increment, we when there is a crisis, it's necessary to increment or gravitorial, or am I
Increment.
right?
When there
Increment. Yeah. And also this is a little bit about what we're
yes,
talking
yes,
about, the concept and the gravitorial.
Yes. Okay, I understand your question. Okay, she says, we are gonna start from the concept of the fact that to evolve is to densify, right? To gain gravitational status. To have a gravitational status is a very demanded thing in the universe because as we know, as we talked about, hydrogen or gas or antimatter is infinitely abundant. But to have a gravitational existence, it is the most precious thing in the universe. This is why religion and mysticism and all of these currents manipulate us into thinking that what's sacred or gracious is abstraction and that matter does not matter. When in fact, it is what matters the most in this particular gravitational instance, right? And why do they want you to think that? Because they want to use your space. They want to use like the risks you are taking and taking your credit for that. Right? So what Alejandra is explaining is that if we are going to be incrementing our gravitational status, in that same measure, we should be incrementing our conceptual base, right? What we're saying earlier. Our conceptual base needs to grow, and our conceptual base is going to be our continuous update of our perception in relation to the setting or entorno in which we are projected. We're going to be, but there has to be like an equal growth there. There's an increment in the cone, there's an increment in the foundation. There's an increment in the concepts, there's a growth in the concepts, there's a growth. You can go lower down, more down. You can densify more, densify more. In the measure that you grow your conceptual base as well. Now, you can grow your gravitational status without growing your conceptual base. What's going to happen there? What's going to happen is that you're gonna shift from a rookie or a young manipulator into a pro manipulator. So you're still going to be manipulated. You're still going to be externally managed. You can grow your gravitational status, but you're not going to manage your own, like you're not going to be steering your own wheel of your own existence. It's not going to be you in another dimension connecting with the frames and integrating into your codification these setting of variables. It's not going to be you. It's going to be someone else.
Yeah.
So the codification is not going to be synchronized with others because what synchronizes all of the gravitational documents? It is the entorno. The setting is the one that synchronizes that. So you're not going to be synchronizing there. There's going to be a distortion in your perception. There's going to, like, many things can go wrong when you are not, in this instance, in this after 500 apparatuses, if you're not driving yourself, I don't think you're going to have a good time. If it's not you in another dimension, if you're not understanding the different layers and the different dimensions that make this creation and what your position inside this existence is, what your scopes are, what your limitations are, you're gonna have a hard time. It's gonna get like, even when you like for me, I am learning all of this and I'm still having a hard time. I can't imagine the other people that they're not learning anything about this. Like it doesn't, I can't understand. Like I'm still having a hard time. But at least I know that I am doing it myself. Like I'm not derivating my existence to an external consciousness. I am not praying to anybody. I am only counting on myself. And when there is a really dark hour, when there is a really dark moment or a difficult time, I only have myself.
Mhm.
And I only have what I have. I only have the scopes that I have. And, you know, it is what it is. And if it's not enough, it's not enough. But I'm not going to sell myself to an external consciousness to
Mhm.
continue. I'd rather die, see what I did wrong, reconfigure myself, and then come back.
Yeah.
But at least I'm not lost.
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
But I don't see a lot of people, they have very much difficulties around me also, but they're
We
doing not
don't see.
LGBT, but a lot of self-referential people I have around me, but they don't do LGC, but they are not having a difficult time.
They have their licenses, like their credits are still running. That's my understanding of that. It's like, okay, they have their own credits running, their licenses running, but once that runs out, that's not gonna look pretty. Like,
Mhm.
you know, it's just like a cycle. They are using their cycle, they're using their credit, and then that's it. And I'm sure that those people are like, well, I'll die when I die. I'll die of something. Like they're not afraid of dying because they are connected to their cycle. They know that they're here for a temporal frame and they're not interested in increasing their cycle. They're not interested in amplifying their gravitational
No,
state.
a lot of people I know, they're very in being with the earth and expanding with the earth and are very self-referential, taking all self-responsibility and everything, but they don't know this. But they don't have really have.
The thing is that they can do all of those things from 1 to 3. But when we touch 4, I would like to see their 4, where their identities are. Because that is usually where the blockage is, where they're placing their identities or the references of their existence, what they're understanding, what they're interpreting about their own existence, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah. So there's so many variables, so many infinite variables to see there. And it's always particular. Every particularity is going to have a specific configuration, design, a model, and an interpretation, an interpreter, and all of that. Different
But isn't
configurations.
it because in LGC we are setting the frames, and the people who are more connected also to humans, but don't know that, but are more connected to the earth and know also, we are part of the earth. We don't need to harm the earth. When LGC is more stable, that they can enter it only not by knowing it, but because of the information is there.
Well, that sounds to me as if most of those people have an identity placed on the emotion. That's what I was saying earlier, applying characteristics of the observer to what I'm observing. So I understanding that the earth is an emotional being such as I am. That is one, an emotional identity. And the second thing is that in LGC, what we are trying or attempting to do is aligning into the expansion of the universe. And this has to do with the logic of the frames. All the people that are not interested in learning about the logic of the frames, they are going to be content. They're going to be contained.
Mm.
They're going to be running their own licenses. So this is going to be, like I said, particular. It's going to depend. Like we don't know how or what will happen once the Solar Native code is actually running.
True.
Because
Yeah.
right now it isn't. We're in the transition. Once
Yeah.
it's running, we don't know how, who, or when, or we don't know how it's going to happen.
True.
And like I said, like there are many people connected, but how are they connected? They're mystically connected, symbolically connected, or emotionally connected. And this is a connection that is relative. It is not a space-temporal connection. It is an emotional connection. It is an atomic connection. There is a blockage to all the rest of the dimensions. Or there's an interpretation, a mystical or symbolic interpretation of something that is not symbolic, that is technical, which is why Ale was like so strong in saying, destroy your symbolic identity. Symbols are going to block you from this opportunity. Emotional identity is going to block you from this opportunity. Mystical understanding is going to block you from this opportunity, from understanding technically the logic of the frames. So yeah, you may be connected, but you're emotionally connected. So you are
No, but
conditioned.
I see that a lot of people are emotional connected. They're having a really hard time. I see that. That I
Yeah,
see.
they have a really hard
They
time.
are having now a really hard time.
They
They are
do.
going in like a
Mm.
boom, boom,
Up and down,
up
and
and
then
down. Yeah,
yeah, I have seen that a lot too.
yeah.
And it's so
That I see.
frustrating to see because
Yeah.
there's nothing we can do about that because there is their own self-reference and their own particular path that we cannot change. Even if
True.
we want it, it's just very,
Yeah,
very
true.
intimate and very particular. Yeah.
There I see they have difficulties. But others don't see that. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. It's gonna vary, of course, particularly vary. So I guess we'll see. Once the Solar Native Code is running, we'll see which
Yeah, yeah,
particularities are gonna be able to support the update and which
yeah,
aren't.
yeah. True. Yeah,
Yeah. Once it gets executed.
yeah.
You guys, we didn't finish all the questions, but I am tired. And it's almost time to go.
You shared so much. At the beginning, you were
know.
like, "Oh, share everything." I know. Yeah. I'm on the
But
latest
this was
time.
really, really nice, really good. I love your observations. I love your comments, your questions, everything. It's really good. I think our little group is coming together and I love it. I love that we're going over the RED program. It is amazing how far we've come as a community as well and in this little group. Always thanking Nienke from my heart. Happy birthday also. She had
Yeah.
birthday
Thank you.
22nd.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Always thanking her because we began since 2021 doing this and it was only me and her for a while until you started to come along. But yeah, always a big thank you for Nienke for being there.
Yeah.
And then all
I'm
the people.
grateful to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am too. And to be with you and to know you guys and hopefully one day we can meet in person. We can have a little meeting in person and hang out and talk about LGC.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Denise,
that's
if you want to do the explanation for Geertje for the
a
table,
periodic
I
table.
think it's nice for all of us because you can repeat it all again, and every time you hear new things. So, and I get very energized if Ala is talking about this table, and then so yeah, maybe we can do a separate meeting, but only if you have time. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. Yes, I think we can have a little review. And yeah, I'll let you know. I am a little busy this lab, but I'll try to find a little a space open to
Next
do it.
lab. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, this is our time. Thank you so much. It was great seeing you. It was a great meeting. It's gonna be up in a little bit, record the recording, and we'll be talking and see you soon.
Thank
See
you
you
so much.
soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye
Bye.
bye.